Welcome into another edition of DFO DFS Report. Hope everyone is having a fine Tuesday afternoon. A little bit late to today's show. Just a busy day. 13-game slate tonight, so a lot to put together for the charts. And yeah, here we are. We got a lot to get through on today's show. No Zach Lang again today, so just me riding solo. Going to be a lot of me talking for the next hour or so. Also streaming live on Instagram for the first time ever. So shout out to anybody that's joining us on the Daily Faceoff Instagram page. Happy to have you. If you're a new viewer, this is a daily fantasy breakdown. But if you're a better or season-long player, can help you as well. We break down all the matchups and all of that and go through everything in fine detail. So let's start with the goalies. Our guy Beebs will be in the live chat as well on YouTube to let us know if we have any late breaking news. Before we get to it, Tom says, I guess it's not Zach's fault that we're 15 minutes late. Sometimes it's just a big slate. Daniil Tarasov back between the pipes. I believe it's his first NHL start since late December. So it's been a while since we've seen Tarasov between the pipes of the Blue Jackets. Likely going to see or projected to see Ivan Fedotov on the second half of back-to-back for the Flyers. Logan Thompson gets the start for the Washington Capitals. John Gibson will counter for the Anaheim Ducks. Joseph Woll likely to get the nod tonight for the Toronto Maple Leafs. Jake Ottinger confirmed to get the start for the Dallas Stars. It'll be Tristan Jarry for the Pittsburgh Penguins. Likely going to see Joey Decord for the Seattle Kraken. The Detroit Red Wings will look to continue their red-hot streak, and they'll go with Ville Husso up against Alexander Georgiev for the San Jose Sharks. Jeremy Swayman between the pipes for the banged-up Boston Bruins. Projected to see Andrei Vasilevsky for the Tampa Bay Lightning. Marcus Hogberg will face his former team, who will counter with Levi Marilainen, who's been red-hot for the Ottawa Senators. Jacob Markstrom projected to get the start, although unconfirmed for the New Jersey Devils. Jake Allen was on the ice in an optional morning skate today, which is usually a sign that he will not be starting, which would mean that Markstrom's between the pipes, but we will get confirmation for that around warm-up time. Spencer Knight, second half of back-to-back for the Florida Panthers between the pipes there. Connor Hellebuyck starts for the Winnipeg Jets. Kevin Lankinen, coming off of a shutout of the Toronto Maple Leafs, gets the nod for the Vancouver Canucks. Projected to see Justice Noonan potentially tonight for the Nashville Predators. Basically, he was off before UC Saros, but the national coaching staff said that their goalie is a game time decision tonight. So could still be UC Saros, but some of the indications are that it's going to be Justice Noonan tonight. Aiden Hill projected to stay hot for the Vegas Golden Knights, but unconfirmed. Another piece of information that's unconfirmed for the Vegas Golden Knights tonight is Jack Eichel. Basically, they asked their head coach whether or not he was happy to have everybody back, and he said, yeah, it's great to have everybody back. So that leads me to believe that Eichel will be back tonight, but there's no official confirmation. No one's really reporting it yet, but we're expecting to see Eichel. I did see him in a video on the ice, so he should be back. Missed a last game with an illness. Jordan Binnington confirmed for the St. Louis Blues. We're projecting to see Dan Vladar in the second half of a back-to-back for the Flames. Karel Vejmelka starts for the Utah Hockey Club. He will be going up against Sam Montembeault for the Montreal Canadiens. And then we've got Mackenzie Blackwood versus Igor Shesterkin in the late game. The slate starts or wraps up around 9 p.m. tonight, so should be a very fun, jam-packed slate tonight. Before we get into it, a couple of comments here. Need one of those DFO hoodies? Hey, if you get the hat trick pick right, we'll get you a $25 gift card off to nationgear.ca. You can pick up a DFO hoodie, pick up a DFO hat. Great call in Calgary 3 yesterday. Thank you. Yeah, they were big for me last night. And Brock or Brick, what do you think of a mini stack of Kane and Casper? They don't correlate necessarily all that great, but super cheap. I think that we'll get into the Red Wings here in a minute, and there's a lot to like about that lineup tonight. Let's start at the tippy top, though, with let's zoom this in a little bit. We'll start with the Columbus Blue Jackets and the Philadelphia Flyers. Now, this looks like a pretty good game environment, right? We know that the Blue Jackets maybe not quite as good without Sean Monahan, but we know that they're very good on home ice. You've got the Flyers coming in. They've been playing very well defensively, but coming in on the second half of back-to-back with Fedotov between the pipes. Then you got Tarasov on the other end. I mean, this game, sets up very nicely for both sides. I think that there's potential for fireworks in this one. Could get quite high scoring. So we talk about, the matchups not being all that ideal for the Columbus Blue Jackets side of things because the Flyers have been so good 5v5, at least defensively. The issue for the Flyers is that they're absolutely atrocious on the power play, and the Blue Jackets have been tremendous on the power play as of late. So the Blue Jackets, number 1 ranked power play over the last 10 games, facing the 27th ranked PK tonight. That's the number 2 power play advantage of the night. So as much as the Blue Jackets could potentially struggle a little bit at 5v5, they set up very nicely on the power play. So, you take a look immediately at that top line. You've got Voronkov, you've got Marchenko, and you've got Fantilli together on the top line. And then they fully correlate on that top power play unit. So that's kind of the line that I'm just going to plug into my lineup when I'm targeting the Blue Jackets tonight. That feels like the line that has the best chance of going off. The numbers obviously aren't nearly as good without Sean Monahan. They're still okay. 25 scoring chances is kind of like average. They've still managed to score 3.4 goals per 60. They still play about 30% of the Blue Jackets 5v5 ice time. And then they obviously have that massive advantage on the power play. So Columbus 1 sets up pretty nicely tonight. They grade out, where are they? Where do they go? They grade out all the way down at 31st. Still projected for about 7.7% ownership tonight. Like the 5v5 score here is obviously not ideal, but the power play score I think is the highest on the entire slate. So it's not I'm probably going to be similar to the field here around 5-10%. I do think that they're in an okay spot here against Fedotov. Second half of a back-to-back for the Flyers. I do think the Blue Jackets are probably a little bit better than 38th, but yeah, like there's reason to be concerned about this 5v5 matchup, but the power play matchup looks super juicy. They're still very inexpensive. If you want to include Zach Werenski in one of those stacks as well, he obviously grades out tremendously well. $9,300 though, which is just bonkers to say the least. I mean, we don't see, or I don't think I can recall Zach Werenski ever being that expensive. But yeah, this is an interesting spot here for the Blue Jackets. And I think that it's also very interesting on the Philadelphia Flyers side as well, right? The matchups look a lot better on that side of the puck. I talked about it yesterday, really liking Philadelphia 2. I still really feel strongly about Philadelphia 1. That Noah Cates line's been playing tremendously well. They remain outrageously cheap, and they're a line that I'll get to again tonight. Philadelphia 2 grades out the best, 8th best line to target tonight, but Philadelphia 1, again, the best line under like $10,000 or under $9,000 at $8,700. They've been red hot. They're playing an absolute shitload. Projected for 78.6 matchup score, projected for 26% of the ice time. The underlying metrics are really, really strong. I do imagine that they'll be able to stay hot tonight. Tarasov just has not played all that well this season. He's really, really struggled. And this is a good matchup despite being on a back-to-back for the Flyers. So that top line looks like a great value option again tonight. Still, though, like nobody seems to know about these guys or care about them because they're still not drawing any ownership at all, projected for just 2.3%. So, yeah, really like getting them as a value option. You know, if you want to pay up for the Colorado ones, the Tampa Bay ones, Philadelphia 1 fits very nicely with them. I don't mind getting back to them at all tonight. Philadelphia 2 really didn't do all that much last night. Morgan Frost got on the board, but Konechny and Tippett were relatively quiet. They're projected for 9.2% ownership tonight, which I believe is the third highest on the slate. So yeah, this is an interesting one again tonight. Still seeing some ownership. I feel a little bit better about just getting no ownership on Philadelphia 1, but obviously really, really good ceiling with Philadelphia 2. The underlying metrics here are superb. The matchup is even a little bit better than what you're going to see for Philadelphia 1. So yeah, I think that top 6 is firmly in play tonight. And I have no issues targeting both sides of this hockey game because I do think that there's potential for it to get very high scoring. Last I checked, let's see what it is now. The over-under in this game is currently 6.5, and the over is -121. So by far the highest event game on the slate tonight. The only other 6.5 over-under we have tonight is Colorado, New York, and that's +102 for the over. So overwhelmingly the highest projected total tonight on the slate, and a really good game environment for both sides. In terms of the power play for the Flyers, they continue to struggle. They do draw an okay matchup against a 22nd ranked penalty kill tonight, but they're not really a team that you need to focus too much on the power play. They're just a really good 5v5 team. Washington and Anaheim meet up in Washington tonight. The Capitals are the largest favorites on the slate, -257, 3.7 implied total for them, 2.3 for the Ducks. The Ducks will get Troy Terry back tonight. Huge boost there. I don't really see it with the Capitals. You know, they were obviously unbelievable early in the year. They've really kind of fallen off as of late. I don't feel quite as strongly with them tonight or moving forward, like until they start to show that they can kind of get back to that early season form. That being said, this is still a really good matchup. The Ducks really struggle defensively. The Ducks' only saving grace so far this season has been not just Lucas Dostal, but also John Gibson, who has quietly been one of the best goalies in the league and just kind of going about his business and probably going to get traded at some point, but he's been awesome as well. So yeah, the Capitals just kind of not being as hot as they were early in the season has me a little worried. But the matchup obviously great. The top six here for the Ducks really, really struggles. So there's a lot to like about the matchup here for the Capitals. I just feel like they've been in pretty good spots recently and have let us down quite a bit. They're really not drawing that much ownership, though. So I think the general public's kind of seeing that the Capitals maybe aren't as strong as they were early in the season and have fallen off a bit. But at this ownership, I do think that it's worth taking a chance on. You can build a one lineup with them in a in a 20 max and be over the field on Washington. So the way the lineups are the lines are currently constructed, 17,100 for the top line, 17,000 flat for the second line. So basically the exact same price. Both playing similarly well. Both have similar offensive numbers. The top line's been a little bit more productive this year. I think both are in play. I have no issues with either side. Are we afraid that Torts might switch it up at any time? Yeah, I mean, they're playing well right now. So I think that Torts is going to stick with those lines. Will Torts go back to Arison tonight? I'm not sure. I doubt it, but potentially, but I doubt it. They've got three goalies there. Like, there's no point in playing a guy in a back-to-back. So for the power play for the Capitals tonight, their power play has been really good. Sixth best over the last 10 games, going up against the 20th ranked penalty kills. So sixth best power play advantage. Let's pull up the Capitals power play units here really quick, and we'll kind of figure out who we would rather target. So you've got Strome and Ovechkin there together on the top line, also on the top power play unit. So, sorry, actually, is it Strome on the second line now? Sorry, you've got Strome and Wilson on the top power play unit. So like a Strome, Wilson, Chychrun mini stack is probably pretty interesting tonight. You can include Carlson. I always go with Chychrun. He's always a little bit cheaper. I don't know if that's the case tonight. Let me just check really quickly. Chychrun is 57. So yeah, Carlson is 50. Oh, they're the same price now. Maybe I would lean a little bit towards Washington too, just for that reason. But I don't mind, the Dubois. He's been playing very well. It doesn't have much of a floor, but he's been playing well. Obviously, he's got that 5v5 correlation with Ovechkin, and their underlying metrics are a little bit stronger. So they're probably pretty similar plays. They're the exact same price. You could probably run a lineup with each of them tonight. I don't mind them one bit in this matchup. Despite them kind of cooling off, they're still in a really good spot. I don't necessarily like the Ducks tonight. The matchup is pretty bleak for the top line. That's the only line I've really strongly considered playing. The second line's obviously played fairly well as of late as well, but I just don't think that going up against Logan Thompson's the best play. He's just been unbelievable this year. Anaheim 1 projected for 3% ownership. Anaheim 2 projected for 0.3. I just don't feel like targeting Logan Thompson. He's just been too good. But it is worth mentioning the price has come down quite a bit on Anaheim 1, Vetrano down to 5,700 and Terry down to 5,500. That's a line that I'll probably get back to playing. I just don't know if it's necessarily the matchup for me tonight. Looks a little bit difficult for them. Okay, let's move on really quickly. I just want to pull up something here. So I have the Ducks projected for the 18th highest total tonight. Washington comes in a little bit better at the 11th highest total. So not a game, maybe not the best game environment overall. The Ducks come in with the worst power play overall in the NHL over the last 10 games as well. So one of the worst power play advantages of the night, probably off the Ducks on such a massive slate. Okay, Toronto and Dallas. A bit surprising to see Dallas as road favorites. Obviously, the Maple Leafs are, strongly considered as one of the better teams in the league. They have not been all that great as of late, though. The power play has just really been struggling. And I was kind of digging through the numbers or looking at the game logs for the Leafs as of late, and they kind of seem to be struggling against good defensive teams and teams that might be a little bit looser. They're really able to find ways to score and win those games. Now, that's obviously not crazy to say, right? You're going to struggle to score against the better defensive teams. But the Leafs specifically, the way things are going right now, when they're getting into these low-scoring games with these great defensive teams, they're not winning those games more often than not. So this is a bit of a tough test for them tonight and a bit of a difficult matchup. That power play, whenever they go up against a good penalty kill, like that's obviously not going to bode well for them either. That power play has been really struggling. They're going to go back to that 5-man or 5-forward power play we've seen a lot of this year. See if that changes anything. Matthew Nyes replaces Morgan Riley on that top power play unit, but they go up against the number one PK tonight. I don't necessarily think that this is a great spot for the Leafs. Then you factor in that Steven Lorentz is going to move up to the top line. With Matthews and Marner. I mean, I think obviously he's a big body, good forechecker. He's going to help retrieve pucks, but doesn't provide a whole lot of offense for that top line. Their offensive numbers don't look great with him up there. They're not terrible. They're actually better than the second line. For whatever reason, Nyes is way better with Matthews and Marner. The metrics with Tavares, Nylander, and Nyes are nowhere close to what Nyes, Matthews, and Marner put up. So we're really not interested in the Leafs tonight. In terms of the ownership, let's see what the general public's doing with them tonight. So Toronto 1 coming in at 1.2% and Toronto 2 coming in at 1.2% as well. So yeah, the public's off of them. I'm off of them as well. Dallas is somewhat interesting. Dallas 2 continues to project extremely well. The sixth best line to target overall tonight at just 16,500. What's most interesting is that they're projected for just 1.1% ownership. The Leafs have obviously played pretty well defensively for the most part, but ever since Anthony Stolarz got hurt, we've seen Joseph Woll play like okay, kind of league average. He's got a 9.03 save percentage since Stolarz went down. Not quite as sharp as he was early in the season. And I do think that this is an interesting, get different spot for Dallas too tonight. The matchup is pretty good. They're going to see a mix of the top 6 for the Maple Leafs tonight. The top 6 of the Leafs, the way the lines are currently constructed, not very good defensively. So this is a really interesting matchup for Dallas too, who have just unbelievable offensive numbers since being put together. 3.7 expected goals for per 60, 35 scoring chances, 5.5 goals for. They've been just straight awesome. And they're really, really reasonably priced at 16,500. So I'm definitely going to play some Dallas 1 tonight, or Dallas 2, excuse me. Dallas 1 in a bit of a trickier matchup. They grade out 27th. Obviously, they continue to play pretty well as well, but they're going to see a little bit more of the Leafs' 4th line, which grades out a little bit better defensively. They're also going to see a little bit more of the Maple Leafs' 3rd line, which also grades out pretty well defensively. So a bit of a tougher matchup for the top line of the Stars. And doesn't look like a great game environment. Like I don't want a ton of exposure to this game overall. Has the feel of one of those kind of 3-2 hockey games. And Dallas 2 looks like they're in the best spot overall. Doesn't that mean just more looks for Matthews and Marner on that top line? Yeah, 100%. Like obviously Lorentz isn't out there to be the shooter. They actually interviewed him and he was like, I'm very nervous. I was surprised they put me up there. I'm nervous to be there. And Matthews and Marner basically just said like, go to the dirty areas, get us the puck and we'll do the rest type of thing. So yeah, like they're going to kind of carry the water on that line and he's just going to be relied upon to be kind of do the dirty work. But yeah, it'll mean more looks for them maybe, but I just don't know if it's going to work right away in a tough matchup. So yeah, like maybe they find something with Lorentz there, but I'm not willing to really buy in at their price tag in a really difficult matchup. So in terms of the power play for the Stars tonight, their power play continues to struggle, 25th in the league, so not a whole lot there. So again, not a great game environment to really target tonight. Not a game I have a ton of exposure to, but I do think that Dallas 2 is an extremely interesting low-owned option. Pittsburgh and Seattle, super interesting game as well, because Pittsburgh 1 continues to be unbelievable. I say it basically every show, like I love them. But I do find it difficult to pay $7,000 for Rickard Rakell and $7,000, $6,900 for Brian Rust. But every single night they're getting on the board. Rickard Rakell's on an absolute roll. Sidney Crosby, $7,700 is a really affordable price tag. So 5% ownership tonight. The matchup for them is a little bit bleak. They're going to go up against that top line a lot for the Seattle Kraken. And since they put Kakko, Schwartz, and Beniers together, they've been awesome, right? We've seen their offensive numbers come down a little bit, but the defensive numbers have been absolutely stout. So not the best matchup overall here for Pittsburgh 1, but honestly, they feel pretty matchup proof at this point. They've been dominating night in and night out, and then they obviously fully correlate in the top power play unit as well, and that's a power play unit that's been humming along at 3rd best over the last 10 games up against a 26th ranked PK. So 3rd best power play advantage. I don't really care that the 5v5 matchup's not that great because they're going to get their cookies on the power play. So really like Pittsburgh 1 again tonight. 5% ownership feels great. Don't mind getting to them. Again, I don't love the price tag, but like I don't mind at least jamming them into a couple lineups because they've been so hot, and I feel like they can continue to find success. The rest of the Penguins lineup doesn't do a whole lot. Malkin's expected to be back in the lineup. He's a game-time decision officially. Haven't been getting a whole lot out of that second line. The matchups are pretty good, so if you want to consider Pittsburgh 2 or 3, the matchup isn't terrible. Actually, it's quite good. They just don't do a whole lot offensively. But at $11,100, Malkin down to $4,600. They're seeing no ownership. Michael Bunting's been playing extremely well in that top power play unit as well. To me, more of like a Bunting one-off situation. Obviously, the 5v5 and the power play matchup like from an individual standpoint for Bunting, the matchups look fantastic tonight. So Bunting's a good one-off. Don't know how much full stacking I'm going to do at Pittsburgh too, but they are in a good spot at a very reasonable price tag. So if you're looking for like an $11,000 line, they look like they're okay. Would be happier if Grubauer was getting the start instead of the cord, but that is what it is. I'll mix Pittsburgh too in a little bit, but like I said, Bunting one-off more so than anything. Maybe a Bunting Carlson mini stack if you want to go that route as well, get some power play exposure too. Seattle's got good matchups, but realistically, like the top line's the only one that has a lot or great offensive numbers, but the matchup with the Sidney Crosby line, is pretty good. They're going to see about 47% of the ice time, about 50-50 between the Crosby line and the fourth line. When they're up against the Crosby line, that's great news. When they're up against the fourth line, it's horrendous news. So not the best matchup, but Seattle one continues to grade out very well at 13,100, projected for like no ownership tonight. I probably won't get there on a 13-game slate. I just don't think they have a great ceiling. They'll probably get on the board. Good chance they do. They've been playing very well. I just don't think they have this massive ceiling to really pop off and win you a slate. So I probably won't get there. Seattle 3 is somewhat interesting. The matchup is quite good for Seattle 3. They bumped Jared McCann down to that line. So you got McCann, Shane Wright, and I believe it's Eli Tolvanen on the other wing, if I recall correctly. He's 26. Yeah, look at me go. So that's kind of an interesting line. The matchup's pretty good. The underlying metrics are fairly solid, basically just above average on tonight's slate. I don't, again, know how much I'm going to get there, but it's a super good different spot at 1% ownership and just $11,800. Obviously, enough talent on that line with McCann, Wright, and Tolvanen to do some damage. Maybe a smaller slate, I would have more interest in them. On a 13-gamer, probably not going to draw a ton of my interest. But they do have a really nice power play matchup. Penguins power play or penalty kill, is the worst over the last 10 games, going up against the 11th ranked power play. So when you pull up the Seattle power play, the problem is they kind of just roll out two completely just different units that see similar ice time, and they're kind of just an absolute mess. The one thing that's pretty interesting is that, if you're going to play Seattle 1, Beniers, Schwartz, Kako, you're probably going to pair them with Vince Dunn. If you're going to play Shane Wright, Jared McCann, probably going to pair them with Brandon Montour. That's kind of the only route to go, but I don't think I should spend too much more time on the Seattle Kraken. Detroit and San Jose, very interesting one. So I posted it in our DFS Discord. If you're not in there already, the link is in the description of the video on YouTube. Come on in. We talk DFS all day long. Also drop all the late breaking news to make sure you don't have any holes in your lineup. It won't show up on the stats in the charts because it's just too small of a sample size. But Detroit 1 has really, really good underlying metrics since moving Marco Kasper up there. Granted, it's only in about 33 minutes of ice time, I think. So again, too small for the charts, but it's been really good. Like north of 3 expected goals, north of 30 scoring chances, double-digit high danger chances. They've been solid. So again, they don't grade out great in the charts, but they're a better play than they look. The matchup for them is quite juicy. They're going to see a ton of the Celebrini line tonight. The Celebrini line, pretty bad defensively. Basically, the Sharks as a whole are bad defensively. Then you got Georgiev between the pipes. You got to feel good about that. The thing is, the Red Wings still aren't generating a ton at 5v5. Their 5v5 offensive numbers haven't changed drastically under Todd McLellan. The power play has just been on absolute fire. I think they're 14 of their last 28 or 29, basically firing at a 50% clip over the last 8 games, which is just probably unsustainable, obviously, but like insanely impressive. Thanks to our guy Beebs here. Fedotov confirmed to get the start for the Flyers in Columbus, and I thank you, Beebs. Probably a lot more news to come here as we reach the 5 o'clock hour. But yeah, so Detroit is the team that you're going to want to target on the power play again tonight. So obviously you've got Larkin, you've got Raymond from Detroit 1. If you want to full stack them and include Marco Kasper, he's just $2,600. He's projected for just 4.6% ownership. So while the Red Wings top line as a whole looks like one of the more expensive or higher owned lines on the slate, full stacking them is only probably going to be around 5% owned. Power play stacks in Detroit are probably going to be popular. It's obviously not a secret that they've been red hot. They also draw the number 1 power play score of the night. They're the number 2 over their last 10 games. But if you looked at the last 8 since McClellan's been hired, they would be the number 1 power play in the league by a wide margin. Going up against a 23rd ranked PK of the San Jose Sharks, a Sharks team that also is quite undisciplined. 3.1 times shorthanded per game is quite a high number. So the Red Wings red hot power play should see plenty of opportunities tonight. So yeah, lots to like about Larkin, lots to like about Raymond. If you want to include Kasper, that's fine too. Detroit 2 looks even better. DeBrincat, Kopp and Kane. Again, if you want to go with the Brinkat, Kane, Larkin, Raymond, Sider, get the power play stack. It's super viable tonight without question. It looks like it's only going to be like not that crazy high own. I'm a little surprised by the Detroit ownership. Kane is just 5.7% ownership in one of the best matchups on the slate. One of the hottest players in the league right now, just $5,100. There's just so much to like about this Detroit team, the way they're playing right now. And the price tags are outrageously affordable. You've got Kane, you've got DeBrincat, and you've got Raymond all under $6,000. So lot to like about Detroit 1 and Detroit 2 here. Detroit 2, from a 5v5 standpoint, actually has pretty good offensive numbers. Andrew Kopp, I talk a little bit negatively of his kind of his offensive upside at times. It's been a little bit better as of late. Super cheap as well. If you want a full stack, Detroit 2, they're going to be just like 2.4% owned. But I prefer the DeBrincat Kane mini stack more often than not, especially given the price tags and some of the other value available on this slate. With Ville Husso getting the start, I think people are going to click on the Sharks a little bit more than they would have. It is worth mentioning that, like, I think Husso's been at least league average of late. He's been really good in the AHL. And then since, like, early in the year, he came up a couple times, struggled mightily. As of late, he's about a .903 save percentage. He's kind of dialing back in as he's healthy again. San Jose, not drawing a ton of ownership. San Jose 1, 2% owned. San Jose 2, about 2.5% owned. I probably won't get to them much because, the Red Wings aren't generating a lot at 5v5, but they're also not giving up a lot. They've been really stingy defensively at 5v5. So even with Husso starting, the matchups don't look that great. And then the underlying metrics for the Sharks are really quite poor. So I think that they can probably, they're probably going to get a couple. It's similar to what Detroit did against Chicago and Seattle. That power play is probably going to stay hot. Maybe win 4-5-2. God willing. But I don't think the Sharks are going to do enough to win you a GPP tonight. So they're okay, but not great. Power play ranks 21st tonight overall. So not great. Casper has been good. Yeah, Casper's been really good. I love his game. Goes to the dirty areas of the ice, works hard. I think he's a perfect fit with Larkin and Raymond right now. On big slates, what is your process to narrow stacks when doing single entry? I mean, I don't single enter a lot on big slates like this. I try to enter a few more lineups, but I mean, you just got to try to find, it's going to sound simple, but find your favorite lines. And like, I try not to play like a $23,000 line with a $10,000 line, because the chance of that $10,000 line hitting are somewhat slim unless they're just in an outrageously good spot. So in a single entry, I try to find two of my favorite line stacks that, feel like they're modestly priced and good value and have a chance of both popping off. That's kind of the way I go. Like, try to avoid the super chalk as well. So like probably not Colorado 1 tonight. I would focus in on some more of these mid-priced lines. And I think Detroit is a great place to start tonight. Let's move on to game. I don't even know what game we're on. I'm going to take a quick sip of water here, though, because this has been a pretty 30 minutes of straight talking here. This is when I need Zach to kind of just give me a breather, but I'll keep holding down the fort. We got Tampa and Boston. So this is a really weird game because let's just break it down from a couple of standpoints. Let's start with the Boston side of things. Their lineup is a disaster tonight. So if you missed it, Charlie McAvoy went on IR today. Not great. So now they're down to two best defensemen. Charlie Coyle, bad day to be a Charlie in Boston, is a game time decision with illness. So if he misses, this is what you got. Pretty brutal up front. The blue line without Coyle or without McAvoy and without Lindholm is not great. The issue on the Tampa Bay side of things, and I don't know what to read into this. These were the lines they ran this morning, which is normal, right? Pretty standard for what we've seen from them recently. These are the power plays they ran. And you'll notice that, one, Nikita Kucherov's on both units. Number two, no Braden Point to be found. So I was like, I reached out to one of the Tampa Bay reporters to try to get a better idea of what's happening here. She didn't really know. Like, he just wasn't on either unit, but he was skating on the top line. They also recalled the center. I think that has more to do with the fact that Gongalvis cleared waivers. They sent him down. So just recalled an extra body. I don't necessarily know if the call-up is directly correlated to Braden Point, but I would, if you're planning on playing Tampa 1 tonight, something's weird I don't know what it is. It's just it's kind of bizarre. Like why Braden Point wouldn't be on either power play unit is fishy to me. So whether or not they were just trying new shit, I don't know. But if he's on the power play thing, I mean that sucks. Especially considering he's like $8,900. They still grade out really well. $8,700. There's 26,300. It's a great matchup tonight. The Bruins, very shorthanded. The matchup scores won't really reflect it because the underlying, defensive metrics for Boston are pretty good. But without the two best defensemen, it's going to be a bit tricky tonight. So I want to play Tampa 1. I really do. I just don't know if I'm going to pay that price with as much uncertainty as there is. Like if Braden Point, maybe he does play. Maybe he is on the power play all night long. But I just don't know if I can trust that. So, I think this is probably going to be a bit of a grimy, low-scoring game. Even if the Bruins are shorthanded, they're probably just going to try to muck it up and hopefully limit the Lightning and keep it close. I just don't know. I don't know how this Bruins team wins this game, but I could see them keeping it relatively low scoring and just kind of mucking up the neutral zone all night. Tampa Bay 2 continues to look good. There's a lot of just weirdness surrounding this Tampa lineup tonight that I'm probably just going to stay away from. The general public seems to have the same feeling. 2.2% ownership for the top line. 5% for Kucherov, but the second line coming in at 1.2%. So a game that no one's really targeting. The Bruins are seeing 5% ownership. That line's the only one I would even consider, that top line with Geeky, Zach, and Pasternak. But in this matchup, it's not great, right? They're going to see a lot of the top six here for the Lightning, which hasn't been necessarily great defensively, especially that top line. But I just don't think there's a lot here from this Bruins side of things. I think they're going to have a hard time moving the puck out of their own zone with that defensive core. It's just going to be kind of an ugly game all around. And then their power play absolutely sucks. 29th over the last 10 games, going up against the 4th-ranked PK. The Lightning do look good on the power play. If it was just a normal power play unit, I'd be fired up about it. But who knows what's going to happen tonight with that power play. So, just kind of a weird situation that I'm overall probably just going to stay away from tonight. The Islanders and the Sens, probably not going to spend too much time on this game. It just doesn't look great. The matchups on the Islanders side of things are really bad. Basically just average or slightly above average for the Ottawa Senators side of things. The underlying metrics for this game, pretty strong, top 6 for the Islanders. Marin's played unbelievable for the Senators as of late. And the Islanders are not a team that I'm all that interested in targeting to begin with. So if Marin continues to play well, I just don't think there's a lot here with the Isles tonight. A little interested in Ottawa 1. These underlying metrics are quite good. The matchup is also pretty good. And Hochberg looked good against Utah the other night, but I don't know if I necessarily trust him all that much. So I do think Ottawa 1's somewhat interesting at 18,800, just 3% ownership. Norris, Batherson, Kachuk back together. They've been really strong together in the past. They're somewhat intriguing tonight. Probably going to be in the mix for me about 5-10%. I think this is a pretty good setup for them tonight. But again, not a game that I'm all that interested in targeting. The Sens do look good on the power play tonight. If I am playing this game, it's going to be on the Senators side of things. The Islanders in a bit of a tough 5v5 matchup. Then obviously their power play sucks. The Sens look good on the power play, but the Islanders are very disciplined. So very low total in this game. Not one that looks like a necessarily great game environment, but Ottawa 1 somewhat intriguing. New Jersey and Florida. The Panthers in the second half of back-to-back. I'm interested in the Devils in this one, but this has all the feels of a 3-2 hockey game where neither team is optimal. You're going to see a lot of Hischier versus Barkov. You're going to see a lot of Hughes versus Bennett and Kachuk. Third line versus third line, fourth line versus fourth line. Pretty bad matchups across the board for everybody. Does project to be relatively high pace with the Panthers coming in on a back-to-back. No Aaron Ekblad. Spencer Knight between the pipes. I think there's reason to consider the Devils tonight. The problem is, as dominant as they've been, they just can't seem to finish. Every single night, it seems like this team is in a tight 1-goal hockey game. In the charts, they grade out really well at very low ownership. So I'm going to get there just because I'm going to trust the charts on this one. And I know how talented these two lines are. But again, I'm not going to get too carried away with either. I think my ownership has to be pretty spread out tonight because it just doesn't feel like there's any just absolutely nail spots. So New Jersey 1 and New Jersey 2, pretty affordable. two lines that I'm going to get to because the Panthers are in the second half of a back-to-back with Knight, with no Ekblad. And this is just a team that's super good at 5v5. On the power play, the Devils look, same as the Panthers, just pretty modest. So again, not the best game environment, has all the feels of a 3-2 hockey game. If the Devils can kind of break it open, though, I think that they're going to be the side to target in this one. Sheldon Keefe hockey. That's basically it, man. We saw this happen with the Leafs forever, right? Dominate hockey games and just unable to convert. It's pretty wild. So yeah, their last, what is this? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 games. They've scored 2, 2, 0, 2, 3, 2, 3. Probably another 3-2 hockey game on deck tonight. Next, we've got the Jets and the Canucks. Another game that I'm not all that interested in. This does not project to be very high event whatsoever. Actually, by far the lowest event game on the slate. Not a whole lot here. I would maybe play Winnipeg 1. They grade out really well still. They're seeing no ownership. But I just don't see how you get there, right? Because this is a team that pretty good at 5v5, but they are largely dependent on the power play as well. And the Canucks have been very good on the PK. Hellebuck in net for the Jets basically takes me off of the Canucks entirely. Plus, Hughes doesn't look 100%. Pettersson just getting back. They like their underlying metrics as a whole for this entire club are pretty bad. So yeah, not a game that has a lot of my interest, but Winnipeg 1 will always grade out well because they play a ton, but without a good power play matchup, probably one to avoid. 2-0 Jets. Yeah, that's probably accurate. Yeah, Hellebuck feels like a pretty good play tonight, but like how much volume is he even going to see? He projects to be, $8,200, projects for his 24 shots against. Lankinen projected for 24 shots against. Like, how low event is this game? That's gross. Absolutely gross. Staying away. Look at Markstrom projected for 24. That game as well. Just not pretty. Not pretty at all, either one of these last two games. I needed a couple games to get through really quickly. Is Zach alive? Yes. He is still in Calgary. Hasn't come back home yet. So, yes, very much alive. Will be joining us later this week, I believe. But, yeah, taking some time off. And I'm holding down the fort. Wait, you don't like just listening to me? Moving on to the next game, we've got the Predators and the Golden Knights. So, as I mentioned at the top, do expect that we're going to see Jack Eichel again tonight. So, these are the projected lines for the Vegas Golden Knights, although unconfirmed. But this is basically what they went with in their last game with Jack Eichel. Nick Waugh did not play in that game, but now with Nick Waugh back, he should slot back in on the fourth line. So, should see obviously Barbashev, Eichel, Stone back together. If Eichel plays, Olofsson, Hurdle, Dorofeyev, Howden, Carlson, and Kolasar on the third line. So matchup-wise in this one, pretty good on both sides of the puck. Most of my interest coming in on the Vegas side, not so much on the Nashville side. They're just so difficult to trust. And if Aiden Hill gets to start, he's just been dynamite. Top line with Eichel back in the mix should be a great play tonight. Their underlying metrics are outstanding. Something about Vegas too, though. I just can't get away from them. Hurdle, Dorofeyev, Olofsson seems like a duo that should do some damage. They grade out pretty poorly, though. 44th, 15,100, 2% ownership. A lot of volume on that line. I don't mind them in a low-owned spot. Jack Eichel wasn't projected for any ownership. Now, projected for 0 ownership and not in the projections are two wildly different things. I do think that Jack Eichel is going to see ownership tonight. I just don't think that our friends at RotoGrinders had a chance to update their projections with Eichel potentially in before I came live. So regardless, Stone 1.1% ownership, Barbashev 2.6% ownership. I don't imagine he's going to see all that much ownership at $9,100 anyway in a matchup that's not overly strong at 20,700. If a Noonan gets a start, now I don't want to be too rude to a Noonan because he's been awesome really since arriving in Nashville. Since arriving in Nashville, he's 3-2 with a 2.28 goals against, average and 930 save percentage. So it's not like he's just an auto target. I still, though, at the end of the day, like I'm not as afraid of Justice and Noonan as I am UC Saros. So yeah, there's a lot to I think there's a lot to like on this Vegas side of things. You take a look at the implied totals, which I kind of skipped over. 3.2 implied total, they're road favorites. I think there's something here. on a slate with not a whole lot of overwhelmingly strong plays, I think Vegas is certainly interesting. The matchups look good. The underlying metrics are good. So they're a line that I'm going to play in a low-owned spot tonight. If Aiden Hill's between the pipes for Vegas, I just don't trust this Nashville team to produce a whole lot of offense tonight. Power plays are pretty bleak on both sides. The Vegas Golden Knights power play a little bit better, though. Seventh best against the 16th ranked PK. The other issue for the Predators, the Vegas Golden Knights are ridiculously disciplined, just 2.1 times short-handed per game. Okay, let's move on to St. Louis and Calgary. The Flames in the second half of a back-to-back. I mean, minus 170 seems a little extreme for the Blues, even on a back-to-back, but Dan Vladar between the pipes, not Dustin Wolf. I kind of see it. Pretty low event game, pretty brutal matchups on both sides, though. Doesn't look like a game that's going to be crazy high scoring, but man, both these teams have been super fun to target as of late because they're just so cheap. And the underlying metrics across the board offensively pretty strong, right? You've got the top line, which is going to look a little bit different for the Blues tonight. You've got Neighbors moving back up there with Thomas and Buchnevich. Holloway, Shen, Kyrou remain together. Obviously, they've been awesome. The underlying metrics for both those lines, very good. St. Louis 2 continues to play great. And then on the Flame side, I mean, I said yesterday that I liked Calgary 3. I don't know, again, how much I'm going to get to them today because yesterday they had the 100% matchup score. Tonight, 1.9%. So a little bit different. But yeah, St. Louis or Calgary 1 and Calgary 2, I think are fine because they've been so good offensively. I don't mind getting to them a little bit. They're just so cheap. They're going to all kind of grade out pretty modestly, right? St. Louis 2, 15th or 17th overall, 15,500. Drawing a decent chunk of ownership, which I agree with. I would probably be more on the St. Louis side of things in this game just because of the back-to-back. But Calgary 1, Calgary 2, both grade out fairly well in the top 25, seeing next to no ownership, both super cheap. And, you know, the volume you get from Coronado, Backlund, and Coleman alone is great. They provide a great floor at 12,400. So that would probably be the line that I would go to on the Calgary side of things because they can obviously score a couple goals like they did last night. The floor is really good. But most of my interest probably coming in on St. Louis 2, which is 17th. Where's St. Louis 1? All the way down at 39th, but at just 14,400 in a pretty good spot. In terms of the power play in that game, both penalty kills have really struggled, so both power plays are solid. The Blues just don't ever go on the power play, but 17th best power play up against 28th ranked PK is fine with me. You've got Buchnevich, you've got Thomas together on one unit, and then you've got Shen, Holloway, Kyrou together on the other unit. They're both probably going to play a similar amount of ice time. To me, St. Louis 2 is the preferred route for me. Shen, Holloway, Kyrou, Falk is probably my preferred route to go with the Blues this evening. These broadcasts with just you remind me of the way it used to be when you first started. Yeah, I did years of this. Dorofeev back on the top power play unit. Yeah, maybe. I don't know 100% if that's going to be the case. They did flip-flop last game, him and Olofsson, but with Eichel back, I don't know 100% if that's going to be the case, but it's certainly possible. It's certainly possible that he remains there. Because, yeah, he was there last game for a bit, flipping with Olofsson. We'll see who ends up there tonight. Utah and Montreal in the second to last game. Utah 3.4 implied total, minus 147 home favorites. Utah won, garnering a lot of ownership again tonight. The second highest owned line on the slate at 10%. I get it at $15,700, fully correlated on the top power play unit as well. They just don't grade out well because that line together just has not really worked. Clayton Keller, Nick Schmaltz, Logan Cooley have not been nearly as good as Barrett Hayton up there. So the Gunther injury is really damning for this Utah hockey club. I understand what they're trying to do with Cooley, but it just hasn't worked in the past, and I don't know necessarily if it's going to tonight. That being said, you know, the power play doesn't grade out very well. 16th best overall. The Canadiens have been very strong on the PK. Their 5v5 defensive numbers have been improving. This is a Canadiens team that I'm starting to trust and I think is pretty good. And can continue to play well, especially while they're getting good goaltending. Dobesh has been great. Montembeault's been solid. He's going to go tonight. So, yeah, like I think I'll probably have a little bit of Utah 1 exposure, but not a lot, and maybe none. I just don't really trust these offensive numbers. I don't think this matchup is as good as it looks on paper. I bet Montreal money line this morning because I think that this is kind of disrespectful. Utah's not been playing that great. I think Montreal's been playing tremendously well, and I'm far from a Montreal truther, but they've looked very, very strong. But the matchup score still looks pretty good. Obviously with the whole body of work this season, Montreal doesn't grade out very well defensively. So the matchup still looks good. They fully correlate on the top power play unit. I understand why you'd want to get there. I understand the play. It's just not one that I'm probably going to get to a lot. I actually prefer the Montreal side of things. Again, not a whole lot to go off in terms of hard matching in this game. So all the matchups look fairly similar. But the underlying metrics for Montreal 1 continue to be really, really solid. And that's a line that I think is, got a lot of confidence right now. Suzuki is playing unbelievable at $5,700. Caulfield at $6,800. That's a line that I think I am comfortable getting to tonight. And again, another one of these kind of get different spots. I prefer them to Utah 1 in this game, to be honest with you. Karel Vejmelka's played, again, pretty well. Maybe not quite as well as of late, like coming off a pretty easy performance against the Sharks. But prior to that, had been given up, a little bit leaky since around Christmas. 907 save percentage in his last 6. Not terrible by any stretch. So, again, not a great game environment overall, I don't think, which doesn't seem like there's many great game environments tonight, which is why that Flyers Blue Jackets game sticks out so much and why I'm shocked at kind of how low the ownership is for it. But yeah, Montreal 1 looks fine tonight. In terms of power play for the Habs, it continues to not be all that great, going up against the 12th ranked PK. One thing that is interesting is both these teams are very undisciplined, 3.4 times shorthanded per game for each of them. So could be plenty of opportunities for both these power plays, but both PKs have been pretty good as well. I like Hudson. Yeah, Lane Hudson, he looks unbelievable. I would continue to play him. How expensive is he tonight? He was like $4,300. Wow, that's really big. He is $4,200. Yeah, he's another good play tonight. I like Montreal tonight. They grade out better than Utah. I'm fine. I don't know how much of the depth I'm going to get to of the Habs, right? Like Laine's cooled off a little bit. Newhook and Doc don't provide a whole lot. Laine at $5,900, maybe a reasonable one-off, but not all that interested. And then I always don't mind Montreal 3 as a cheap one-off, but I think there's better options. Like I prefer Philadelphia 1 around the same price. So no real reason to get to Montreal 3 tonight. In my opinion, maybe on the late slate. Okay, Colorado and New York. I do feel like the Rangers are starting to get this thing back on the rails a little bit, right? They've looked a little better as of late. Last, 4 games? 6-2 win in Chicago. Okay, everyone beats the Blackhawks. 5-4 overtime loss to the Stars. 3-2 overtime win over the Devils and the 2-1 win over the Golden Knights. So maybe starting to get things back on the rails here. Not a great matchup tonight, though. Plus 130 on the road. I think the betting market agrees that this thing is starting to get back on the rails. Matchup-wise, still looks really good for the Avs tonight. I think Colorado 1 is always just kind of in a good spot. I don't know if the Rangers are getting it back on the rails, are they better defensively? Are they going to, are they still just going to be relying on Igor Shesterkin on a night-to-night basis? I think probably. So I think Colorado is in a good spot. The problem is Colorado 1's the only line that does anything. Casey Middlestad's line has been basically dead since Nichushkin left or got hurt. And then the rest of this lineup you can't do anything with. And then you've got the power play, which continues to suck, which makes no sense. But they do go up against the 29th ranked PK. So, again, another opportunity for this power play. Even though they ranked 28th in power play over the last 10 games, still the 7th best power play advantage tonight. That's how bad the Rangers PK has been. Rangers are also pretty undisciplined. So 3.1 expected opportunities in the power play tonight for Colorado is among the highest on the slate. So, yeah, I understand why Colorado wants the highest owned line on the slate at 15.8%. It's not that egregious. I don't mind meeting the field or going over the field on Colorado one night. I think the matchup's pretty good. I think I've laid out plenty of good value stacks as well that you can easily pair with Colorado 1 tonight. Drouin at $4,400 has been pretty solid. McKinnon 10K, and obviously you've got Ranton at 8,800. And obviously you have the fact that if they do get a lead here, they're going to score empty net goals because they're empty net merchants. So I like Colorado 1 in this spot. I do think that, I don't think the Rangers have necessarily figured out their defensive woes yet, and this is a very tough matchup for them. I don't mind like obviously getting to some New York one, they're super good, but this is a tough matchup, right? The Avs are pretty good defensively, and whenever they do give up chances, Mackenzie Blackwood's just been unbelievable. Uh, let's pull up his numbers. Like obviously you've got what Noonan's done since leaving the Avs, but then you've got what Blackwood's done since arriving. 1.6 goals against average, 1.66 goals against average, 939 save percentage. He's been unbelievable. So probably no interest in the Rangers. Maybe a get different spot in the later slate, but like on the main slate, there's just really doesn't feel like there's any reason to get there with how good Blackwood's played. The power play matchup for them is pretty bleak as well, so not a whole lot of interest there. Favorite value stacks. So I laid out a lot of them. How cheap are we talking here? Let's go under 15,000 bucks. Don't mind Seattle 1, but I prefer Detroit 2. Detroit 2, probably my favorite value stack on the slate. I don't mind Calgary 2. I don't mind Philadelphia 1 and all. They look great. And those are probably my 3 favorites. St. Louis 2, I think, could probably fall into that category at 15,500. They would fit that bill as well. Maybe Philadelphia 2 as well. Where's Columbus? How expensive is Columbus? 16,000. Yeah, they're not really value. But yeah, these would be my favorites. Like Detroit 2, Philadelphia 1, Calgary 2 would be among my favorite value options tonight. Can you sort by ownership again? Of course. No worries. Colorado 1, Utah 1, Philly 2, Detroit 1, Columbus 1, New York Islanders 1, St. Louis 2, Detroit 2, Pittsburgh 1, Boston 1. Round out the top 10. Get those screenshots in. Let's talk about some defensemen now. Almost at an hour here. So if you're watching, we've got over 1,600 live viewers right now. Especially if you're watching on YouTube, can you smash that like button for me? Really helps grow the show and it's much appreciated. And also, if you've never watched the show, we do a hat trick pick challenge at the end of the show. You can comment your hat trick pick in the comment section of the video on YouTube. And if your player scores a hat trick, we'll get you a $25 gift card to Nation Gear. You can pick up a DFO hat, DFO sweater, anything you want. Okay, some of our value defensemen. This is kind of fun. I like to start to do this now. Sort by power play 1 defenseman, sort by price. Who's our cheap power play 1? So Nate Schmidt still in top power play unit for the Panthers. Mason Lohrei, newly minted top power play unit for the Boston Bruins with McAvoy. Jamie Drysdale in top power play unit for the Flyers. I think he's a solid value option. Looked okay last night. Grizzly back up there. Is he back up there? I thought I saw that he was off that unit. Did I make a mistake earlier? Maybe I did. No, he's there. Okay, so I said earlier that Carlson and Bunting mini stack makes sense, but maybe a cheap Grizzly Bunting mini stack makes even more sense. My mistake. And then, yeah, Lane Hudson is great as well. Okay, let's get back to the big board here. In terms of value, actually, another exercise I want to start doing is sorting by projected time on ice, because obviously you can get more done in more ice time. Devon Taves, 4,500. Gustav Forsling, 4,600. Ivan Provorov, 3,100 looks nice. Same with Dante Fabro, 32. Really good game environment there for both of them. Should be plenty of shot attempts. Adam Pelech, north of 23 minutes at $2,900. And you got Lane Hudson, Keandre Miller, all guys that are projected to play over 23 minutes at very reasonable price tags tonight. Okay. Some other guys that project really well in terms of raw projections. Adam Pelech, Josh Manson. Yeah, I love Josh Manson at $2,800. He's been a favorite value of mine recently. Fabro again, Miller. I don't really care for Cam York all that much. Denton Mateychuk, really, really good prospect. Starting to see more ice time. Also on power play 2 for the Blue Jackets at 2,700 in a good game environment. Mason Lohrei, I don't really love that team tonight, but he's a good price tag. Probably won't get to a ton of Brady Shea or Michael Kesselring. I know Zach loves Kesselring. Gustafson seems okay at $2,500. Yeah. All right. Shot block gods of the night. Oh, I guess I should talk about my favorite expensive guys, obviously, as well. $9,300 for Werenski seems a little expensive, but yeah, Moritz Seider, $5,900 feels great. You got the Jake Wallman revenge narrative in Detroit tonight at $5,500 is good. Don't mind Erik Karlsson at $5,500. Who else looks pretty good? I like Jacob Chikrin at $5,700. I talked about those Seattle defensemen as well. Devon Taves at $45. Yeah, most of my interest, man. A lot of Moritz Seider tonight, I think. And then obviously some cheaper defensemen. When I'm paying up, it's probably going to be to try to get to Moritz Seider as much as possible tonight. All right, between the pipes. Let's go. Logan Thompson, projected to be the number 1 goalie overall tonight. I mean, sure. I don't know how much volume he's going to see, but he grades out very well. So that's cool. 72% implied win percentage, the highest of the slate. Projected for, is it the highest? Yeah, the highest ownership on the night, $8,500. Yeah, he's been unbelievable. I get it. I don't know how much volume he's going to see, but I like it. Binnington probably projects to see a fair amount of volume as well. I mentioned I like Calgary too because they shoot a ton. I think that it's reasonable to expect Binnington to face a lot of volume. Projects very nicely tonight at $8,000. I probably prefer Binnington over Vamilka. I like I said, I like the Canadians tonight, so probably Binnington over Vamilka. Vasilevsky at $7,500 seems unbelievable. The Bruins are incredibly shorthanded. Vasilevsky at $7,500 looks great. Again, don't know how much volume he's going to see, but at $7,500, I don't think there's a better goalie play on the slate, in my opinion, for that price tag. Odger, I would just rather play Vasilevsky. So at this point, we're looking at who we dumpster diving for. Let's sort by points per 1,000. Decord against the Penguins, I think, is okay. Not in love with it. Shesterkin should see a ton of volume. Could be a real slate breaker. I think Marolainen, the way he's played as of late against a not very great Islanders offense, is pretty good at 7,300. That's interesting. I think Georgiev is going to get you a lot of leverage. I don't feel great about it, obviously, but I think that's a decent leverage play. I said he's a great leverage play the other night, and it actually worked out fairly well. I think he was, I don't know if he was definitely optimal, but I've seen him in a couple slate winning lineups, even though we lost. But yeah, 7,000. Like the Red Wings are great, right? Like they've been playing great, but they're not a team that you should be $7,000 against, I don't think. And I'm a Red Wings fan, so power play has been unbelievable, but you can't go 50% forever. Sam Montembeault, $7,300. I've been burned by him a lot. I'll probably do it again. I don't mind John Gibson, $6,900 either. I don't mind Gibson at all. $6,900. He's been awesome. That Capitals team has not played nearly as well as of late. Gibson, what is Gibson at right now? Like 3rd in the league. Let's go to Money Puck. Let's go minimum 15 games played. Goals saved above expected per 60. John Gibson, 3rd in the league. Logan Thompson, 1st. Connor Hellebuyck, 2nd. They've been awesome. Yeah, be firing up all 3 of them. Kenzie Blackwood, 2. Really good stuff. Okay, let's get to today's hat trick pick challenge. We'll get you on your way. Again, if you want to participate in today's hat trick pick challenge, you can do so by commenting your hat trick pick in the comment section of the video on YouTube. Again, over 1,700 live viewers right now. So if you guys are watching on YouTube, please smash that like button. Much appreciated. My hat trick pick tonight, I mean, Jesus, there's just so many to choose from. But as much as I just said, I don't mind Georgiev, I do think the Red Wings power play stays hot, at least for one more game. It's too good of a matchup. So I'm going to go to my Detroit Red Wings tonight, and I am going to go back to the well with Alex DeBrincat. I think I picked him last time. He had 3 points, just not 3 goals. So I'm going to go with DeBrincat and the Detroit second line as my hat trick pick. Drop your hat trick pick in the comment section of the video on YouTube. While you're there, if you want to get $20 off the first month of RotoGrinders NHL Premium, you can do so. There's a link in the description of the video on YouTube. Shout out to them for providing projected ownership. It's really leveled up the show, made it a lot easier to break these slates down as well. And yeah, if you want to get your $20 off your first month there, take everything you learned in today's show and throw it in their optimizer and build the optimal lineup. You can do so. $20 off right now. Link in the description. And while you're there, you can also click the link to join our DFO DFS Discord. It's growing by the day. We're in there chatting DFS all day long. A lot of smart men and women in there talking DFS all day. And we also, like I said, I always drop the late news or late line changes. And if I don't, somebody in there does to keep you up to date so you don't miss a thing. Really, really helpful stuff. If you have any questions after the show, I try to answer them as much as I possibly can. So yeah, I think that's going to do it. We got a much smaller slate tomorrow, so I will be back live at 4:30 p.m. Eastern. And if you are new to the show, because you found us on Instagram today, thanks for joining us. We will be going live on Instagram every day now as well too. So if that's a preferred way of watching for you, you want to just sit back while you eat dinner and watch on your phone on Instagram, we will be going live on the Daily Faceoff Instagram every day at 4:30 p.m. Eastern. Have a feeling that Zach won't be back tomorrow, but I will be back tomorrow by myself if I have to be. 2 games tomorrow. We've got Carolina and Buffalo, and we got Minnesota and Edmonton. Going to be a doozy of a show. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. We'll see you guys back here tomorrow. Until then, cheers.